I believe that crypto gaming has the potential to be one of the largest narratives come next bull run, and that crypto gaming projects, infrastructure, and protocols in the space could be some of the best performing assets during the next bull run. The biggest thing that's been holding crypto gaming back so far has been the lack of quality games, with most crypto games so far being extremely gimmicky. However, it's my belief that when we get a genuinely good game in the crypto gaming space, we're going to not only see crypto gaming take off, but have its own like crypto gaming bull run. And Illuvium is widely considered to be potentially the first AAA crypto game in existence. It's been in development since 2020, and it releases on Epic Game Store on November 28th, which is the day after this video comes out. So I wanted to know if Illuvium is this quality game that crypto gaming has been waiting for that could potentially kickstart an epic crypto gaming bull run. I also wanted to know if the Illuvium token, the ILV token, was a good token to buy right now with Illuvium's release on the Epic Game Store. To answer that question, I dove into the project's fundamentals, I played the game, and I actually got to talk with Kieran, the co-founder of Illuvium, to ask him questions directly. And after all of that research and spending the last few weeks actually playing the game and that conversation I had with Kieran, here's my takeaways about Illuvium and the current state of the crypto gaming sector. And to start off, I'm going to more focus on answering that question: is Illuvium a genuinely good game that could potentially kick off a crypto gaming bull run? And then I'm going to move into just like crypto gaming in general, the ILV token, and all of that. Illuvium isn't just a single game, but it's actually an IP that encompasses multiple different games. The general concept is you go around collecting these creatures called alluvials, battling and collecting resources. The resources you collect are used for crafting better gear, they're used for crafting these things called shards, which you use to catch the alluvials, and they're used to craft special utility items you could use during battles. Here's how Kieran, the co-founder of Illuvium, describes the game.
So Illuvium is the world's first AAA interoperable blockchain game. So we're building 3 gaming experiences at once. The first one is Illuvium Zero, which is a mobile-friendly game, which is an industrial city builder. Then you've got the Overworld, which is this very expansive, immersive world that you go out and capture these creatures. You build weapons and armor and all sorts of stuff like that. You've got 7 regions to go out and explore. It's it's a huge open world. And then you've got the competitive game, which is Illuvium Arena, and that is an auto battler. So super strategic. You got very competitive battles there. That's where we have more of our esports scene. And all 3 games are interconnected, so you take the assets from all of them, and they're all essentially interchangeable between games.
This actually got me pretty excited. If you think about Illuvium as simply like a single game, well then the growth potential of that game, of the ILV token and all of that, is limited to the life cycle of that single game, which typically the life cycle of a game isn't like incredibly long. However, when you think of it as an IP or like a network of games, the growth potential gets much, much bigger. As players invest more time into the game and into the IP, they're more likely to play any successive games that Illuvium ends up releasing. For example, theoretically, let's say that Illuvium ends up releasing a trading card game, something similar to Parallels or Magic the Gathering. The alluvials, the resources, the gear, and the different things that players have already invested time and money into can be used in that new 4th game. They would be cards for like creature cards, or they would be resources, or they'd be items that are represented by cards in this new 4th game. That means that this new game already launches with a dedicated player base who's invested in seeing it succeed. And to be honest, the reason they're probably mostly invested is because they have assets in these other games. They have these alluvials, they have these different NFT assets that they've collected that they want to see go up in value. And the more successful this game is, and the more utility it brings to those items, the more valuable those items end up becoming. And as these network effects get bigger and bigger, this is going to incentivize other game studios to want to build within this same IP universe, because again, they're going to have an already established player base who's already incentivized to want to play games that are released that give their assets more utility and therefore more value. This right here, to me, represents a huge opportunity and especially benefits the first movers in the space. Now, that's just one reason that I think crypto gaming is extremely bullish. Another reason is this concept of digital artifacts, which I've talked about in my GameFi video. If you want to go back and watch that, it's worth watching if you don't quite understand what the difference is between crypto gaming in just traditional gaming and the advantage that crypto gaming has over the traditional gaming model. But I was curious why Kieran and the Illuvium team had chosen to build a crypto game versus just a normal game. So I asked him.
So the biggest reason for me, and the thing that really gravitated me towards crypto gaming and thinking that this could be a very large paradigm shift in terms of mainstream gaming, is the idea of verifiable ownership of assets, right? There's been, since basically the dawn of time, people have been spending hundreds, if not thousands of hours playing a game, and they get really good at it, and they get, think of World of Warcraft, where people are running around, they're farming gold, they've got all of these good items and whatever, and Blizzard didn't want anyone to be able to sell their items, so they didn't actually own it. It was they're saved on a server somewhere, and you're basically at the mercy of the developer. Whereas with blockchain games, we give you that ownership, and so any of the alluvials that you capture, any of the weapons that you create, any of the armor, any of the skins that you have, the emotes, like every single thing in our game is basically an NFT, which allows you to then go onto our marketplace. It allows you to sell them. It allows you to trade them. You can buy them, and it creates this meta economy, which makes it a really, really enjoyable experience. And again, you don't need to do this in our game. It's an option, and so we make the crypto side of it something that you can educate yourself on as you go through, but it's not a requirement when you come in. You don't even need a wallet. We'll create that for you. You don't see it. It sits in the background. And the minute that you're ready to say, do one of these things, like sell one of your assets on the marketplace, that's when you can learn a little bit more about it. And then at that point, you're already onboarded, and you didn't realize it, but the idea of being able to sell something inside of a game is not new to people. It's just a new technology which we're adopting.
Now, the way I like to wrap my brain around this is think of something like collectible trading cards. Cards like the Mickey Mantle baseball card are worth $12 million. And that's $12 million for essentially a piece of cardboard. The reason, though, that it's worth that much is because there's only so many of those cards in existence, and people like to collect them. And basically, the core fundamental of what crypto gaming offers is true digital collectibles within a game. Items that are player-owned, have a history, and can be sold to other players on an open marketplace. As well as, since they're player-owned, can potentially be used interoperably across different games. Speaking of collectibles, Kieran mentioned that Illuvium plans to have different seasons where, say like in Season 1, you can catch specific alluvials that you'll never be able to catch again. Here's exactly how he described it.
In our case, we have, how we're sort of playing into that is we have sets. So similar to how Pokemon sets up their characters, as you go through those games, they add a few new characters. Sometimes they add 20, 30, 40 new characters. But the idea with Pokemon is when you move to a new game, you don't get to keep those characters. Whereas in our case, you do. And so we have sets as well where every 12 months, maybe 12 to 18 months, depending on how we go, you will never be able to capture those alluvials again, right? And so if a player is coming into the system 5 years later, right, and these characters are connected to another game, which enables you to unlock so many different strategies and gameplay and abilities. And so if you've got someone that's playing with this 5-year-old character that you can no longer get anymore, someone will be like, what the hell was that? What did I just come up against? Like, I've never seen that before. It's not in the current set. And in fact, it wasn't even in the last 3 sets. It was in the first set, the original. So it's got that history, as you're saying, of one of the original characters that were caught. And so inherently you just gain value based on that.
He also talked about how these collectible assets could become more and more valuable as the Illuvium IP ends up expanding and opens up more use cases for these, each of these assets.
Where it gets really interesting is with the gameplay, right? Like some of these characters that you'll never be able to capture again, if you want them, you'll have to buy it from someone else in the marketplace. They have different classes and affinities, and so when you're talking about going into the arena, you might need another fire type character or air type character, or you might need a rogue, or you might need a bulwark, or whatever it might be. And there's only going to be a certain amount in whatever set is available. So if you're coming in and all of a sudden you can augment your team with, you just need that one more air alluvial, and then you'll be able to create the synergy of say 7 air units, which is super, super strong on the board. You might not have been able to do that without buying someone else's from a previous set. And so it really, it not only holds the value, which is the opposite of what we saw back in 2021, where people would just go, like the games that were out, it was basically just breed, and you're creating the same thing over and over and over. Of course, they're going to lose value because as soon as you have less people coming into the ecosystem, you're creating multiples of the assets, they get diluted. Whereas in our case, there's utility that you can't access unless you want to buy it from someone else. And hey, I might say, well, you know what, I don't want to sell it to you. And the reason I don't want to sell it to you is because I know how valuable this is now, let alone in another 5 years. And then where it gets really, really cool is inside of this interoperable universe that we're building, the first 3 games are set. A new game might come out in the future, and you'll be able to take that alluvial that you caught in that set from 5 years prior, and that will be a whole new character inside of, obviously it'll have the same traits and whatever, but if it's a car racing game, it might turn it into a vehicle that has all of the same sort of similar omegas and whatever, and someone else, like that's a flex, right? Like you're going through this new game, and we would have all of the starting cars that you normally would because it's a brand new game. But then there'll be these really OG, super limited cars that you can get if you have this asset, and other people are just going to go, what the hell is that? I want that, right? Like just because I can't have it, I want it, right? And then who knows what people pay for that.
So overall, after hearing all this, I started to sort of piece together my bull case for Illuvium and my bull case for crypto gaming as a whole. Still, I knew there was a huge difference between, just talking about something and actually experiencing it for yourself. So I decided to spend some time physically playing all 3 games to see if it really lived up to the hype, or if it, in reality, it was actually just a dud. I also let my kids try out all 3 games to see kind of like what they gravitated towards the most as well. And out of the 3 different games, my kids were least interested in Illuvium Zero. Illuvium Zero is basically like a Clash of Clans style game, sort of. You build structures and you can pay these coins to make your structures go faster. And, it's all about resource management and building up your city bigger and bigger. With the overall goal being that there's certain resources that you can generate in Illuvium Zero that are really rare and that are used in the other games. So you can actually take these resources, sell them on an open marketplace, and potentially turn it into like a little business. And there's an added unique feature on top of that with these things called blueprints. Here's how Kieran describes blueprints.
Well, I mean, to be honest, when you buy land, that's you need to build something called a research lab, put that on your land plot, and then as alluvials roam past your land, you don't actually see them in Illuvium Zero, but as they do, your research center picks them up, and then you can go and you can go and scan them, and occasionally you'll pick up a blueprint. That blueprint is what is needed in the overworld to go and actually create that skin, which is also really cool because you might be the only person in the world who's ever researched and found that skin. And so you have this like business in itself, in that if someone else wants to buy that skin, you're the only one who can create it until someone else researches or finds and then researches that skin and goes, yep, now I can make it. Then all of a sudden you've got two people who can make that skin, and maybe that person previously was saying, I will only sell this skin at $10,000 because I know how rare it is. I'm the only one who's got it. Then all of a sudden some guy comes in and he's like, finally, I unlocked it 2 years later. I'm sick of this guy's monopoly. I'm going to sell these skins for $10. Now, I don't know, but it creates again, like this meta game inside of our game, which I think is pretty cool. And we have like stuff like that across the entire ecosystem we've thought of.
So for me, I was most interested in this concept of building, like, again, sort of like a side hustle with this land of, trying to go out and get these different blueprints and maybe being able to manufacture those skins based off those blueprints and sell them on the open marketplace, and being the only, sole distributor of like some super cool skin that everyone wants, and, just raking in the cash from that. I don't know how it actually works. I've been playing this game for a couple weeks. I haven't gotten any blueprints so far. It's taken a long time to build up my resources to the point that I can actually build up like the research lab and the things you need to get these blueprints. So I don't know how it actually works in reality, but that concept sounded really cool to me. The second Illuvium game is the overworld game, and this is one that my kids definitely absolutely loved. The basic concept is you drop into these unique biomes where you're looking to collect special resources and you're looking to catch different alluvials. And each alluvial that you catch is its own unique NFT that you could potentially later on sell on a marketplace for however much people are willing to pay for it. And like Kieran said, each season is going to have its own unique alluvials that are only available for that season. So potentially later on, if those end up becoming collectibles or highly sought after alluvials, they could be worth, potentially a lot of money. Again, it just depends on what people are willing to pay for them. And I think the reason that my kids ended up loving this game is it's really similar to collecting Pokemon cards. Just like Pokemon cards, you're trying to catch these unique alluvials that are part of a set that, maybe only comes out once. Knowing that potentially those alluvials could be worth a lot of money in the future if a collector wants to buy it from you. That's exactly the same way as trading cards and Pokemon cards work today. Kids go out, they buy the packs, they're hoping to get a really good one. If they get a really good one, they hold on to it for a long time, hoping that maybe it'll go up in value in the future. And at least over the last couple of weeks, my kids have been asking to play this game pretty much every single day. At least one of them comes to me and is like, hey, can I play Illuvium? I really want to go catch some alluvials. So it's clearly a fun game, and clearly the crypto aspect of it is what makes it more fun than it otherwise might be. The third Illuvium game is the auto battler PvP aspect. And while over the last 3 weeks I haven't been able to actually do any PvP because it's not out yet, I was able to do a lot of battles versus like the computer. And like I said earlier, it actually ended up being pretty fun. It has a lot of depth, it has a lot of strategy, and it's definitely something I could see players having a lot of fun with. In fact, my kids ended up really liking it too, and they would sometimes choose to do that rather than do a run in the overworld. Overall, I would say this game is definitely fun, and it definitely can be addicting. And I would say that obviously the killer feature of this game is that collectible aspect. That's what makes it inherently really addicting. And I would think that my kids would be a pretty unbiased test as far as like how fun or not fun the game actually is. For me, like as an investor, like I guess I could be biased and be like, I want this game to be fun because I want a crypto gaming bull run. So I'm going to be like more likely to maybe like the game. But my kids don't care about a crypto gaming bull run. They don't care if crypto goes up in price. They're just not going to play the game if it's not very fun to them. And they ended up spending a good amount of time on the game. So overall, my take was that this game certainly has potential and is definitely a massive leap forward for crypto gaming. But I really wanted to know more specifically about the ILV token, which is Illuvium's token. So I asked Kieran what like the different use cases for the ILV token were, and this is how he responded.
So there's two use cases for it. The first one is for voting. So we've set up, and we did this before we even launched our token. We basically set up a governance structure where the token holders, every epoch, and they've varied based on other governance.
And Kieran keeps talking and like explaining the different ins and outs of how the governance works and goes into a lot of detail. I was pretty interested by how sophisticated their governance structure was and how well thought through it was. It definitely wasn't your simple like vote yes or vote no and that's the outcome that we're going to choose. There's a lot more thought put into the way that they govern their game, which I like that. After continuing to explain the governance structure, Kieran then jumps to the second use case for the ILV token.
So the second use case is actually quite a bit, I don't know, some people love governance, but a lot of people like sort of token goes up. And this was something that we built into our tokenomics very, very early. It's super experimental. but it's basically what we call rev distribution. So 100% of the revenues that are generated in the protocol in terms of in-game revenues are distributed back to the token holders. And how that is done is we pool, let's say we go and make $10 million of ETH with people buying things in game and traveling and curing shards and all of the different actions you can take inside the game. We then take that $10 million of ETH and we buy ILV back off the market, and then we send it back to stakers proportionately based on how much you have staked and how long you are staked. And so every time we have a buy, you see this nice increase in the token price. And what the system is designed to do is we've got a finite amount of tokens that are in circulation. The maximum that it can be is 10 million. And so what I believe is going to happen, and we've only ever done one distribution, so it's not been a regular thing yet because our game isn't launched. But what I believe is going to happen is instead of people getting that distribution and then just selling it back into ETH or USDC or whatever currency that they want to cash out on it, I think they'll sell a portion of it, and another portion of it they will just restake because they know the next month there's going to be another distribution and they want a larger percentage of the pie. And so ideally what happens there is you constantly get people locking up and you get less tokens in circulation. So as we buy more tokens and generate more revenue, the price just continues to go up. That's it in theory anyway.
The first question that popped into my head, if that's the case, is how does the Illuvium protocol as a whole actually make money then? Here's how Kieran responded.
That's the golden question. So everyone asks that, like, what are you going to do? You're going to run out of money at some stage. So basically, we are holders as well. So the DAO, Illuvium DAO, holds about 15% of the tokens. So of that $10 million, we would make 1.5 million, and then we use that for operational costs, staffing costs, legal, all that kind of stuff.
The last thing I wondered was, is the token used at all in the game? Like, is there any way that you use the token in the game to maybe purchase things or to use it for anything? And here's what he had to say about that.
No, so there is kind of it's not really a use case, but essentially for our staking program, 30% of our token we wanted to be distributed through yield farming. So we had a really even distribution. And we allowed people to claim their rewards, their staking rewards, as the in-game token instead. And effectively what that does is burn the ILV. So when I said 10 million is the maximum, it's actually probably going to end up more like 9.5 million, just purely based on people claiming what our in-game token, which is SILV2, so essentially synthetic ILV. And that has the same value in our ecosystem as ILV. And that means that you can use that for in-game purchases. But once that's fully used up, it'll never be used again. And the only way that you can purchase things in our game is with ETH.
Okay, so those are the different use cases for the ILV token. Obviously, the most compelling one for me was the fact that they do the revenue share and that they share 100% of the revenue with token holders, which I was shocked by that because there are very few crypto projects out there that do anything even close to that. And the fact that the only way that the DAO, the Illuvium DAO, can make money is if the token actually generates revenue, to me was really bullish because that means the incentives between the token holders and the actual DAO are clearly really aligned. Taking a look at metrics, the market cap for ILV is 647 million and the fully diluted market cap is $1 billion. They have a treasury of 95 million with basically 97% of that being their own ILV token, which Kieran already mentioned in the interview. Unlock-wise, they have a decent amount of tokens that's still locked up, up that are being unlocked over time. These locked tokens belong to the team and seed investors and will be fully unlocked by September 2025. Currently, there is no revenue for the game as the game obviously isn't live yet. And because of the unlocks, I'm going to just gauge growth potential for the ILV token based off the fully diluted value, since all the tokens will be unlocked by the time I'm expecting the bull run to be in like full-fledged bull season. With all that being said, here's my base case for the ILV token. Axie was the most popular crypto game last cycle and it hit 9.7 billion in market cap. And I'd say based off of all of this, it's 100% possible if we had a full-fledged bull run, ILV could reach similar heights. It's a much better game, and I expect crypto gaming to be a much bigger narrative next cycle. So that would be about a 10x from here. And that'd be something I would expect to happen at the height of next bull run, not something I'd expect to happen, anytime soon. In fact, I would say with the launch of the game on the Epic Game Store, there's really two ways that this could go down. Typically, when there's a big event like this, the token rallies up to the point of the event, and then it ends up crashing after as like all the people kind of buy based on the event, the hype of the event, and then they sell off when they realize the hype of the event is like not gonna miraculously make the token go up. However, there are the rare few times that like the launch is so successful that it causes like a second wave of buying that does end up pushing that price higher after the event actually goes down. Although it seems really risky to assume that something like that would happen. To me, it'd be probably better to assume that that won't happen. To me, it would make more sense to zoom out and ask yourself, how likely are we to see a crypto gaming bull run this next cycle? And how big do we think crypto gaming can get overall? And I figured since Kieran literally lives and breathes all this stuff, he'd be best equipped to gauge like how big crypto gaming could get and how soon crypto gaming could take off. So I asked him first how big he thought crypto gaming could get, and if he saw crypto gaming as like the future of gaming or more like a niche market.
I think it'll be the future of gaming. As I said, I don't think we'll be calling it crypto gaming, NFT gaming, Web3 gaming. The minute that a game comes out that is the same quality as mainstream and offers verifiable ownership of assets, players aren't going back, right? Like it doesn't happen. Look at history, look at every single industry since the dawn of time. It doesn't matter if if the consumer wants something and this product has been made available to them and it's such a better experience, they don't turn around and say, you know what, we accept you for who you are. They don't give a right? They're like, no, we want a better product experience. If you're not going to give it to us, we're going to jump across to our competitor. Look at what Uber did to the taxi industry, right? It's something like that. Now, do people accept that they need to call up this line, sit there, there's an operator who doesn't care, you're watching taxis go by, and it's like, hey, I know, like I can see one available right now. Like, do you think after someone gets in that first Uber ride that they're like, you know what, that was amazing, but I'm going to go back to the taxis? Like, no, it's not how consumerism works. And so I genuinely think as soon as we get experiences across the board, we're 3 genres. There's 25 different genres out there. We need sporting games, we need car racing games, we need battle royales, we need MOBAs, we need RPGs, we need all of these different categories for people to say like, yeah, like I go and play that game and I don't need to spend $2,000 to go in, but I own my assets and it competes with Fortnite. So then that happens for 4 or 5 years and it's game over. You get 1 billion people, maybe even 2 billion people in the next sort of like 5 to 7 years that are going to migrate across. Like it's very, very clear in my head.
Then I asked him realistically how soon he thought crypto gaming would take off. Was it going to be this next crypto cycle, or is it something that's like 5 to 10 years down the road?
So all of the games that started building in 2021 will likely start going live in 2025-ish. Maybe a few will launch in 2024. But I have a sneaky feeling that the majority will launch in 2025. We will be absolutely launched and it'll be early next year. But again, we're only one game, right? So our total addressable market right now is about 100 million, potentially, right? Like all things considered, the genres that we're in, people who aren't like screw crypto, like they're open to it. It's about 100 million. that can only be opened up with other genres, and we aren't going like we're certainly going to start building new gaming experiences, but again, they're going to take time. So it's not going to be like when I say like proper take off, I mean like 100 million, 200 million, 300 million people in this space playing games. I don't think that happens until 2025.
I thought 2025 was really interesting because that's the point I expect the market to be hitting its parabolic phase during this next bull cycle. Then I'd say that's incredibly bullish for crypto gaming come next cycle. And we could definitely see crypto gaming be one of the biggest narratives during the bull run, which would mean that my bull case for ILV next cycle would be that it hits something like the market cap of Shiba Inu, which at its height was $43 billion in market cap, meaning my bull case for ILV is potentially a 43x from here. Bear case wise, my argument against ILV would be that if Illuvium's launch flopped, it could take some time to recover from that and other games could end up taking center stage. I would say secondly, if revenue ends up being like really poor and doesn't perform very well, I think that could also negatively impact the ILV token. Overall though, I think long term it's an interesting play. I think the game is fun. I think the concept is really compelling overall, and everything comes down to execution and how well Illuvium is able to find product market fit. And I already own some ILV, but I plan on scooping up some more if we see any sort of pullback. And as far as crypto gaming goes, to me it seems like the future is bright and that yes, potentially Illuvium could kick off a crypto gaming bull run, but more likely, as Kieran said, we see it really take off over 2024 and into 2025 as more quality games come to market. If you want to watch the full interview with Kieran, it's on my podcast channel, Steady Lads, or you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple, etc. As always, if this video is helpful, make sure to hit that like button. If you have any crypto games you're bullish on, let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it to be notified each time I release a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.